navigating modern manhood, exploring what it means to be a father, a husband, and a man in the 21st century. Now with your hosts, Scott and David. Hey Scott, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm tired. It's a Sunday evening, isn't it? But we're very lucky to have a special guest tonight. So how are you on this Sunday evening? Let me ask you first, Scott.
Yeah, I'm a bit tired too, to be honest. I had a very busy day, covered a lot of ground from painting, gardening with the kids, cooking, everything. So it's been an eventful Sunday, and really looking forward to meeting Ross and diving in and learning his perspective, because he's quite a spectacular man from what I've heard about him.
Yeah, so just before we bring Ross in, I met Ross probably about a year ago now through my wife. And my wife and Ross, as he will explain, have a special connection through the opera, how they met. And I used to be an opera singer, as you know. So my wife said, I've just met Ross. David, you have to really meet Ross. And so we arranged a coffee catch up about 12 months ago. And from that first moment, you know, when you meet someone like you and I, Scott, we met online through the academy that we know each other through. And it's just that connection that you feel with somebody instantly. You go, wow, there's something there. And so with our series now, I really thought Ross is someone to talk to. So we're going to bring in Ross Reekie, who's a keynote speaker on the meaning of work, meaningful work. And he looks at real life stories and empowering insights with people. So I'm really looking forward now to having Ross. So let's bring him in.
Let's do it.
Welcome, Ross.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for joining us, especially on a Sunday evening. And I hope for those who are watching, maybe they're having a cup of tea like you might have, Ross, as well.
Yeah, I do. It's a show about men, but I have a best mum. There's a modern man moment for you.
There you go.
Multitasking, I love it. And appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.
So we'd love to hear about your work, about what you're up to at the moment, for those who are watching this episode, and also to ask you, I guess, as we've asked many, you know, what's your take on modern manhood, and what does it mean to be a modern man, in your opinion? So maybe we kick off there, and then hear a little bit more about you as well through this.
It's great that you start with the super easy question. Yeah. Just what is the meaning of life? Is that question too? But to me, modern manhood is I think it's an ever-changing, fluid concept. And I think my idea of modern manhood has changed a lot since I moved to Vienna, and since I had a kid, and since I had a little bit more responsibility than I did in my single life. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if there's ever been, I've never lived through many other times in history, but I don't know if there's been such a rapid changing flux of what it is to be a man. And I don't know if I have the answer. I'm just trying my best to figure it out day by day.
We don't have the answer. That's why we're asking you.
Yeah.
We ask all our people that come and visit, and it's the chin wag that we get going. So it's every perspective that allows us to grow as well.
Yeah. But I really was thinking about this the other day. You know, for my dad, it was quite straightforward. He went to work 9 till 5 as an accountant. He wore a grey suit, went to a grey building, and came back in a grey mood. And my mum, for the large part of my life, was a stay-at-home mom until she got a job and started rising through her career ladder, starting businesses and setting up her own businesses. And I watched my dad's role change quite dramatically. And for him, I think, you know, family, golf, and friends were his top 3 things. That's what it meant to be a man for him. You know, taking care of family, playing his favorite sport, and hanging out with his friends and drinking a beer. And that was kind of it. And when Mum went off and started having a career and doing really well in her career, it changed our family dynamic, and it changed. I saw the role of father and man change for my dad. And I didn't think about that again until I had a kid 4.5 years ago. And I thought, okay, what what am I to this kid? What am I to this partner? And that's totally changing. You know, it's. I think you have to ask me maybe on my deathbed, and I'll have a better answer. But I think it's. I go back to my dad's definition and think, what are my top three things? You know, is it family, friends, or is it more work and career, or is it single life is more hedonistic? But what it means to me to be a man now is more about being a good dad and trying to be a co-captain of the team rather than the sole leader of a team. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. A co-captain.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the easy stuff then, and let me ask you then, just to share with our viewers, Ross. You know, what is it that you are doing at the moment? What has been your work history? So we just heard you became a father 4.5 years ago, but yeah, what else do you get up to in your top three?
Well, gosh. Well, I see we've got my name here, Ross Reekie, and meaningful work expert down the bottom, but I think I could have written anything in that box of what I do. And if you'd asked me just before, maybe a year before my son was born, I would have said, yes, I'm a meaningful work expert. I'm researching, I'm doing a PhD, I'm running my business, a consulting business, and I'm doing organizational strategy, but around this topic of how people find meaning and happiness in their work. That was the thing that lit me up, and that was the thing that seemed the most important thing in my life. And I was studying a full-time PhD. I was running my business during the day, trying to figure out what is a meaningful work consulting firm, because I'd found this passion and trying to build that. And I had a team of 8 people working for me. Those were the important things in my life, you know. And then I got into this long distance relationship with an Austrian girl, and I was traveling back and forward on top of this 6 weeks 6 weeks Sydney, 3 weeks Vienna, back and forward, back and forward, back and forward, and then came a burnout, and the diagnosis of burnout was rather inconvenient as a meaningful work expert. At least that was my thoughts at the time. This isn't really good branding.
Yeah. This is getting in the way.
Come and see me. I can teach you how to get into a burnout. This is exactly what every leader and team member needs. But it's turned out that this moment of diagnosis of a pretty bad and awful burnout has taught me more about what work means and where it sits in the realm of life than any research paper I read or any piece of research I did. So, there's a broad brush, but there's some stories along the way with that.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And I love it how it's actually your work purpose is a meaningful work expert, and you actually had to go down into that burnout to learn how to come back out and speak from experience as well, rather than theoretical. So that's, as you said, that's where the main lessons were. That you could pick
they were pretty bloody hard lessons, though.
You
know, I thought doing a PhD would be really hard, and you know, I haven't finished it, so I guess it is hard. But this real life PhD was way harder, you know. And there were times when I thought, that's, you know, I can't. I don't know if I can finish this. This is really hard.
But that probably led you to the meaning, right? You understood the meaning a whole lot more. It gave you more drive. And listening to you at the beginning, you were talking about that it's fluidity in the modern man. And you actually experienced fluidity in what you were doing, you know, going between Sydney and Vienna, experiencing that burnout and running your consultancy firm at the same time. It's all about fluidity and learning and adaptability. So even talking about your experience with your dad, he was go in the grey suit, the grey building, come home in a grey temper. And then he had to adapt and learn with fluidity with your mum, actually getting the jobs and going on and progressing. So his role changed, and even your role becoming a father has changed, you know? So it's cool. I love how the linkages is right there.
I hadn't looked at it with that word in mind before, that fluidity, but I think it's a good one. It's yeah. You know, it wasn't easy for my dad either. You know, that was, Yeah, my parents eventually divorced, and I think the work topic, or my mum's need to do that, was something very hard for my dad to understand. And I think if I'm, I don't want to speak out of turn. I should let my mum speak for herself on this, but I think it's probably pretty fair to say that she didn't know exactly why she was driven so much with her work either. But it seemed to take on this importance, and I noticed that. And and when you start looking at the family history, my grandfather on my mum's side died through overwork or work stress. So he had a very large 25 branch electronics store in England, and I think he'd been guarantor on somebody's loan, his best mate, and who committed fraud, skipped the country, and the banks came to my grandfather, and he was bankrupt. And 6 months later, he died of the stress from this work situation. So there's a line running through the family, and there's a story that I think runs through all of us in modern society, that we're gradually beginning to wake up to and start to look at from some kind of distance as a society, and there are many, many technological, there are many, many political, and there are many lifestyle and cultural reasons. And then we had COVID as well that have just made us look at work a little bit different and start asking this question: what does it mean? Why are we doing it? And for me, I unfortunately I got that lesson the hard way, but fortunately, I got the lesson before it was too late.
Yeah. And we're glad that you are here with us to share this lesson, Ross. I mean that we've had many chats, good chats in Vienna when we've met together, and I'm really grateful for the time that we've shared. And I've said to fill our viewers and Scotty and Rita, I think, Ross, you are a natural storyteller. And we feel that already. So you're now able to share your story and bring the stories out in others, I guess, too. Two things came to my mind too. Often Sunday night, as we are here, it's 9:30 on a Sunday evening. I've heard statistically this is the time when people do evaluate career, think about work, meaning. They know they're going into a job next week, thinking about that. Some people love it, some people hate it. I've always felt blessed as an opera singer, now as a university lecturer and a coach, to sort of love that work that I do. So people said to me during the week, well, what does a holiday mean to you? Well, I actually like, 10 days is sort of enough for me. I like getting into that work. But as you said, I'm hearing from you that generational kind of tip into that overwork situation. And I recognize too in my dad, someone who's always worked very, very hard. And you too, Scott, your background with the family business, so there's those sort of pressures that come generationally that we've both got. And as you're saying, Russ, at the same time, we're looking at from the perspective of, well, what creates meaning now, post-COVID, in a society where men and work equally, perhaps, and should have opportunities to pursue careers, as our significant others are doing. My wife's in Milan at the moment, singing in opera house over there. So, but yeah, how do you, I guess, thinking about your personal journey, how do you combine that with the work that you're doing now?
Well, I mean, if I take a step back and just address your comment, you said you've read research and you've heard that, Sunday night is a time where people reflect on their work. I think that's very academic language for the reality of the situation. I think people on a Sunday night are not sitting there reflecting on their career. They're sitting there going, shit, I can't believe I got to go to work tomorrow. And that's a different kind of reflection. It's more of a torpor or a desperation or a physical feeling in your body, in your gut somewhere, that's just wrenching you and saying, I really got this stress coming on. I really got to get up in the morning. I just don't want to do it. And I've experienced that before. And I think most people who've had a job have experienced that unless they're extraordinarily lucky. So we all have that, and we cope with that as best we can, and I'm fascinated by this idea of a duty, and especially as a dad, you've got this duty to provide an income, to keep a roof over people's heads, to make a life for others. Mm-hmm. And it's duty balanced with this need to self-fulfill, or this need to express oneself or be authentic. And I think that's really something I've been giving a lot of thought to recently. Mm-hmm. And it leads into your question of, how do I balance it? I can be really honest about this now. When I was pursuing that meaning of work topic, it was something that I felt really, really in every fiber of my body. I tripped over this topic by accident. I'd always said, I'd looked at tower cranes and I thought, I wonder why that guy is up there driving that tower crane so far up in the sky. I'd love to talk to him about it. And, at one point I heard about this idea of hospital radio, and I thought, that would be a really cool gig, would be to interview people about why they do their job on hospital radio, where people are sitting around and they've got this time to reflect about their lives. They're sitting in a hospital bed.
Awesome.
And it turned into going out and buying a podcast recording device. I went and bought one of these things, and the cost of that was really what I was buying was this external motivation to go and do it. If I bought this, I've got to do it. I've got to start recording interviews, and I've got to start interviewing people. And you guys are recording this podcast, and you're building your subscription base, and you make all sorts of mistakes in the beginning. I forgot to hit record on my first ever one. But the second one I did was a cracker, and I interviewed a friend of mine, Nicola, who'd been an investment banker who had a breakdown, and she'd taken a sabbatical from work, 6 months, and she became a swim coach on a Greek island. And she spoke with such a raw, deep and passionate, in such a passionate way about the experiences that she'd been through. And she was very open about this. And my colleague at the time had sat in on this interview and said, wow, wouldn't this be, and after Nicola went, she just said, that was amazing. And imagine the insights you'd get if you keep doing this. And then she just casually dropped it in. That'd make a great research topic for a PhD. And then, immediately all the hairs on my body, and I'm a hairy Scottish man, I've got a lot of them, they all stood up on end. And I said, I've got to make a phone call. And I knew exactly who I had to call. I had to call my philosophy lecturer from MBA. I called him, I got straight through. This is what I'm doing. Would it be a PhD? Would I be a candidate? And it was yes, and yes, and you must come and see me immediately. And then that's the organic, natural part of it. And those are those feelings that lead us to the things that we're supposed to do, those things that we feel in the middle of the night when we wake up. We've always known, they're in there somewhere. And I had access to that, and it was amazing. But what I had on top of that then that came next was the hard bit, because what came on top of that was a whole bunch of unhealthy and unhelpful views on what this should look like. So this really organic idea, which was just buy a recording device, interview people, make a podcast, it turned into, okay, well, I got to build a business around this. Now it's a meaning of work consulting firm that I'm doing. Now I'm doing a PhD. Now I'm doing the PhD full-time in the evening, and I've got to do this really, really fast to catch up, because this is finally found at 38 years old, 39 years old, what I want to do. And everything had to move really quickly, and everything had to be on this grandiose scale. And this perfectionism and this unrelenting voice in my head that said, it's got to be this, it's got to be this, it squeezed me out of this. And that beautiful organic moment of thinking, this is what I want to do, it very quickly got away from me.
Yeah.
So that idea of balancing things was really important. I was pushing and pushing and pushing to make this happen, and I was ignoring the voice inside me that said, "Hey, you just want to do the podcast," and all of a sudden, now you've got to write marketing material for the PR company that you've hired, because your marketing manager is telling you to do it, because you need to sell spaces on a workshop, because you need that money to pay for the marketing team, to take this idea to fruition. And I remember looking at it going, I just want to record the podcast for fun. This
Okay.
where did the fun stop?
Yeah.
And interestingly, I think post burnout and where we are now, there's a big story in between. But post burnout, that was the lead up to burnout, and I think finally now I'm starting to address those habits and those voices and those patterns and those needs. And interestingly, now that I'm doing that, the organic ideas are just starting to flow a little bit better. And
that's good to hear.
Yeah, that's cool. I was just going to say with the balance, when you actually find balance, whether that's with your purpose or, diving in with emotions, like listening to both of you talking about the Sunday nights and what actually feels right, and you actually looking for the fun in the meaning of work. It's like it all comes back to the emotions inside. And, David, as an EQ professional, can go into great depth with this. But you just mentioned right there 3 key things: patterns, habits, and needs. And if we can get our needs met and we can break our patterns and create new habits, then we can enjoy that fun that we're searching for and have, we were talking about flexibility and fluidity. That's where the balance is. You were on a momentum roll and leading into the burnout. And sometimes with my mentoring, I'm talking to someone, we're going to build some momentum here. And actually the momentum for you is actually to sit still and do nothing. And to the conscious brain, it's like, wow, I can't do that. But it's about finding that balance. And I think the key thing there is actually allowing yourself to have time and find it and the balance, and then those organic ideas come out. When you're pushing something, it's like you're reaching too hard for it. You just can't quite get there. But when you find balance, the world gives you what you need.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think with patterns, habits, needs, understanding your needs is really hard. It's really hard. We tell ourselves these stories, and these stories are often complete fantasies. And there's a real story going on underneath, and you don't know that real story until it's really, really tested. Often, or it manifests itself as a problem somewhere. And you're forced to address it. So I think that self-reflection, that really brutal honesty is really important with ourselves to get to that. But sometimes you just need a big bloody mirror to see it, and even then it's hard, So, and changing the habits, that's never easy, but I think really understanding the drivers underneath is super hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to shift gears for a moment, so I'd love to bring in your idea. So obviously you've shared, this period of time. When I first met you, Ross, you were saying, well, I'm working at the opera. So you met my wife, who's an opera singer at the opera in a production. She was singing on stage. So tell us a bit more about your job at the opera, because you've just come from an opera tonight. That's why we're Sunday night. So you've been on stage, of course. So tell us a bit more about that, and how does that fit into where you are now, what you're doing too?
Yeah. Well, Margaret is awesome, David, as we both know. She's got such a spark of life about her, and it's irrepressible. And I met her backstage, waiting for my cue to go on, and I said, "Hey, are you Australian?" And she said, "Yeah." And so I lived in Australia for 17 years. And she said, oh my God, that's amazing. And we had this chat, and I told her what I was doing. And she said, you got to be my husband. You guys are going to get along. This is great. But the opera job came up. Well, actually, I resisted this opera job. A friend of mine is in the orchestra, and we know that Vienna is a Freundl-Wirtschaft kind of town. You know, you've got your network, and that sorts you out. And I think it's worth rewinding. I found out about the burnout on a Monday. I went in and told my team about the burnout on a Monday afternoon. They cried. We've been watching you get into this. We couldn't do anything about it. I was the only one who was surprised. On Tuesday, I took my doctor's advice, and she said, normally I would say take 6 months off work, but you're running a business, you've got all these stresses. Take 1 day off, think about life's priorities, and come back and see me on Wednesday. So I did it. I went to yoga, I jumped in the ocean, I went to the local cafe and ordered the kale smoothie, extra avocado, everything green, trying to fix myself in 1 day. And then I fell asleep because I'm tired. And then I woke up and sat on the living room floor with a piece of paper. And I was trying to work out, how do you work out life's priorities? What are they? And you know, I was like, do you need a mind map? Is this a matrix? You know, do you just list things in a table? Like, what would be the criteria? What are the elements? And the pen was on the way to the paper, and it was just arriving at the paper, and I had no idea what I was going to write. And that was the moment that I got the call from Pippa in Vienna, my partner, and she was crying her eyes out and said, "There's been an accident." And I said, "Oh my God, what's wrong?" And she said, "I'm pregnant." And that was the moment I burst out laughing and threw the paper over my shoulder. And I think that's really important context for how I found myself in Vienna, because you know, all of a sudden this wasn't long distance relationship love and then making a very conscious decision to make a change. This was a long distance relationship and love, but with a little surprise along the way. And the surprise couldn't have come at a crazier time with the burnout. So trying to deal with my brain had basically shut down, and we worked through it. And the conclusion that we came to was, and I say we, the conclusion Pippa came to is, I need to be in Australia, and I need to help him figure out what to do with his business, get him back to health, and I'll have my baby in Australia, and we're going to work it out and then go back to Vienna. So, you know, that sounds like the dream partner, but, you know, we argued and we fought about that. And it was very, very difficult for her. And it was very difficult for me. And when we eventually moved to Vienna, it was coronavirus. It was the beginning of Corona. So everything's in lockdown. I don't speak German. I don't know what I'm doing. I know that I still have this dream of chasing this passion that felt like it was slipping away from me. And that seemed important at the time. And then I didn't know anyone here. I didn't have an office. My business in Australia was kind of on hold. And I was sitting here at this desk, just alone. And I'd met the dads at the kindergarten, and they were kind of my social outlet every day, having a coffee on the street, socially distanced, and having a chat. And one of the dads worked in the opera and said, you know, they're always looking for people. Why don't you do it? And I couldn't do it. It didn't feel like it was a worthy use of time, you know. And then eventually he got me drunk, and he's like, you're the meaning of work guy. Why wouldn't you do this to have a story at least? And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to try it. And I found myself on the stage. And to my great surprise, what I found in the opera was this restoration, this restorative process. And I didn't expect it to be like that. I thought this was just doing this for a bit of a laugh, but it's turned into a bit of a, I think salvation is a very extreme word, but it's turned into it turned into something really fun, which turned into a fun jobs project, which has turned into, which has opened up into this whole new story where I decided, well, I realized that in Vienna I have this blank piece of paper, and I could write whatever I wanted on it, but even that was a ridiculous. It took me such a long time to realize that, and just to let go of what I was trying to hold on to from Australia. And it was this holding on to something and this needing something to work that was just stopping that organic, natural process from happening. And I'd heard myself give a keynote talk, and I'd heard the words coming out of my mouth, I believe work can be awesome for everyone. And I sat on the plane on the way back from this talk, and it just was going round and round in my head. And I thought, I'm ignoring the fact I had a burnout. I'm still saying these words, and I don't know if I believe them. My work isn't awesome. I'm not having fun. In fact, when did I stop being fun? Because I'm really not a fun person at the moment. And that turned into, realizing I had a blank piece of paper, and what if I just worked for fun? And then the idea sat with me for a bit, and I got excited about it. And I thought, well, I'm doing a fun job. What if I do more fun jobs? And then I realized this is a research direction, and it's an opportunity. And it's an opportunity to find a new way of working, to work on the habits to be changed, and to find some insights about myself. And this fun jobs project emerged. So job number one, extra in the opera.
And that's awesome. That led you to us, to being here tonight with us, Ross. So the green lights, you mentioned before the spine tingles. I've always been guided by the spine tingles on the back of my neck. Someone said, you need to go and sing in the opera. You need to use your voice. A clairvoyant on my 23rd birthday. I followed that.
Clairvoyant? I didn't know that part of the story.
A clairvoyant told me on my 23rd birthday, go use your voice. You'll be good at it. And I was doing karate and, all sorts of other stuff. It was like completely out of nowhere. But all the way through these lightning rods of feeling. I don't know if you get it too, Scott, whether you can relate to that. I think there's such a richness in following that gut feeling, if that's heaven, if that's divine, if that's spiritual, or if it's just like something in you just said, go do fun jobs.
Yeah, it did. And I think, we all have that gut feeling. We all have those spine tingling moments. But I think what I learned in the opera, and I learned through the burnout experience, was that following that is not always straightforward. In fact, it can be really hard to follow that.
It's like a push, but you got to go make it happen. You do the work.
And that's I think that's part of the restorative process in the opera. It's I've been the part that I've really enjoyed in the opera the most has been in between the roles. You try on a costume, you go on the stage. That feels great to be on the stage. It's quite a thrill. It's quite a rush. But there's a lot of waiting around as an extra. In fact, like 90% of the job is waiting around. Okay, it's your turn to go on, or they got to change the stage or something. And these conversations that I was having in between the roles were just magical and awesome and really exciting. And you meet these crazy people all have a different story of how they got to the opera. The garderobe, the changing room for the extras, is full of very eccentric people who've taken some crazy career paths, but it's also full of people who are really passionate and they're following their gut on this. And those singers on the stage are and the dancers in the ballet, they're artists, and they know it, they feel it, and they commit to it. And that's incredibly inspiring to see people who have those gut feels and follow those gut feels. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you this story because this actually happened the other day, and it's a really cool metaphor. But we were doing a Bühnenprobe, like a stage rehearsal for a new opera, Il Critico, our role as extras in Il Trittico is just to constantly walk across the stage in the background, and we're supposed to represent a heartbeat, this nostalgia. We're dressed as workers. We're the memories, like the distant memories in the past, and it's quite a cool effect. But in the beginning, there is a guy with a champagne bottle full of little sparkly things, and he walks across the stage tipping this out. So along the ground are these sparkles, and we were doing this rehearsal, and the lighting director was just really, really unhappy. He said, "This is not cool, because you got the lights are overhead, they're shining down. When you walk to the left, we can't see you. When you walk to the right, we can't see you. When you're on that path in the middle, you shine and you look great." And I said, "So should we just follow the sparkles on the floor?" And he said, "Yes, follow your sparkles. That's what I want you to do." And it kind of clicked into place. I thought, okay, well, this opera is just full of sparkles and people following it. And I love that analogy that if you follow that, then you shine and you stand out.
Shine. You're in the light. Yeah,
That's
a great metaphor. Wow.
Love
it was
we'll
really
read the episode. Follow your sparkles.
Yeah, and he was great. He's like, "Wow, this is great. This is deep philosophical stuff." But I just want you to walk straight. That's all I care about. So,
yeah, life's not a straight path, but walk straight.
Yeah. So I think we're like, God, yeah, like we all have those sparkles. We all have those clues. Those things like this clairvoyant in you could see, or I'm sure people around could see you were great with your voice, but making them a reality is something that involves a huge amount of bravery and a huge amount of courage, luck, and constant work, and it's not an overnight thing. So I think that's been a learning from the opera. These people are working hard at that. It's not an accident. They don't wake up one day and then they're on the stage belting out Tosca the next. It's
There's the commitment and dedication, and you can see you've done that through all avenues of your life, like listening to you and the bravery that you go with. Like, it's one of the questions that I did wish to ask, because you were mentioning about the fun jobs and stuff, and it just sounds like, which is one of the things that one of your keynotes talks is overcoming the fear. It's when you overcome that fear and you can take those steps forward, and those sparkle moments, that energy that you get there, the hackles up the back of your neck, that's the energy, that's the sparkle that you got to follow. And whether it's a straight path or not, life is not a straight path. It's all up and down and around the corner, and you've got obstacles everywhere. It's just having that courage to go there. And you just said it's bravery, courage, and taking that action to go through. And it's not overnight. It's not, that luck is not overnight. Luck, you actually create your own luck by taking the consistent steps.
Yeah. And I think there's a fallacy, a very populist fallacy that says, you just work out what your passion is and do that, and then you're happy. And it really isn't like that. I've interviewed people in the opera who are real artists. They're artists when they were born, they're artists now, they'll be artists when they die, and that's who they are. They're artists. They have to tell a story, they have to be creative, and they're not earning the money they hope to earn, or they're not where they want to be in their career, or their art hasn't reached a mainstream market yet, or they haven't made it to a permanent position in the opera.
Yeah.
It takes
deeply unhappy.
Yeah, but they're happy that they're following that. But we all have a need for achievement. We all have a need for belonging, and we all have a need for self-esteem. And just doing what you love is not enough. You've got to do what you love, and also be cool with the sacrifices you have to make to do that.
100%.
Yeah,
absolutely. Wow, it's been amazing, empowering to talk to you already, Ross, and we're conscious of the time, 10 o'clock. So you've had Tosca tonight, I think. Did you say?
Yeah, I did.
Tosca tonight. So, did you have to? Were you part of the group that threw her off the tower at the end?
No. I'm not part of that. But Tosca's just the most. It's the funniest experience you can possibly imagine as an extra in Tosca. There's 65 extras on stage in a procession. It's kind of the Vatican scene where you enter from the back of the stage dressed as a priest or a cardinal or an altar boy. And it's just a crazy, powerful scene with this booming, huge offstage drama. And when you walk out, you really feel part of something because you're in this procession. So there's this connection that you feel with the people around you. And then you walk out onto the stage and the first thing you see is the public looking at you, but they're kind of dark, but you can kind of sense that they're there. And then there's this weird ethereal atmosphere that's created on the stage. It's so powerful. And walk for 20 seconds across the stage holding a lantern. That's it. So you're not unless you walk across the stage for 20 seconds and you're done. But for some reason that's a job, and for another reason it's incredibly fun and uplifting.
Yeah,
cool experience. I love it. It's amazing.
Well, we've loved hearing about that, and of course, in thinking about the lovely stories you've had tonight, the honest sharing. Thank you for that. In that you've been brave enough to tell us about your burnout, but also what brought you to Vienna. And I think you said yesterday you were bike riding with your son. So how old is he now?
He's 4 3/4. The 3/4 is important to him. So yeah.
So maybe he'll look back on this now, and then maybe when he's 14 3/4 or 11, like my son turned today. And so at some point in life, recognize where Dad was in this moment, and where this takes you. So, where can people find out more about your Fun Jobs project, Ross?
Well, the Fun Jobs project, this is a fascinating time to be interviewed about this, because this story is still developing and evolving. So I'm wrapping up the job number 1. The best place to follow at the moment is on Instagram. The handle is Fun Jobs Project. And I'm on LinkedIn, Ross Reekie. I have a website, rossreekie.com. But the best place to follow the fun stories is definitely Instagram for the moment. And in 5 weeks' time, I start job number 2. I start as a ski instructor. I start the ski instructor training course in Kitchenhorn in Salem. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be a fun one. And job number 3 lined up is a stand-up comedian. I'm going to try that, and that's a very deliberate attempt to try and change the way that my outlook on the world. Cool. When I realized it wasn't fun, I was like, okay, well, I used to be fun. It used to be funny, and maybe if I do stand-up comedy, then it can train my brain again to look at the world in a fun way. So, and there's charity work, and there's a whole bunch of jobs on the list, and let's see how they pan out. But for the moment, that's the best place to look. Yeah.
Cool. Well, we wish you well, and if we can plug any of your comedy specials, or if you're playing somewhere in Vienna, let me know. I'll come visit you, and we can.
Yeah, let me get the first one out of the way first.
Of course.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah. No, I get it. So it's been really wonderful to talk to you, Ross, and blending what you do and how you've done it in your life, I think, is really inspirational. Really, and thank you for that honesty as well. So
yeah, more than welcome, and thank you for staying up late to hear me talk.
Yeah,
it's been good. And I love the depth and the thought that goes into everything you do. It's really inspiring, as David said. So appreciate your time.
No worries. And I don't know if it's too late to say one thing, but it just popped into my mind as you were asking about this Instagram thing and the opera thing. I realized during our conversation, I realized this a little bit ago as well, that there is this family history with my grandfather, my mother and father, and then me. And I think being a modern man is about helping my son to form his own view about what he wants from being a man. Beautiful. And I've got to say, the coolest thing so far about this Fun Jobs project is whatever opera you're working on, you go and rehearse, you're on the stage, you're hearing this music, and it always gets stuck in your head. There's always an earworm, I think, David, we talked about the earworm from Le Nozze di Figaro. And the coolest thing that I realized was my earworm infected my son. So he's running around the house at the moment saying, Gianni, squeaky, from Il Trittico. And he's like, I can't get this out of my head. I've got this earworm. And I realized, my dad came home from work and brought his gray suit and gray mood. And I'm coming home from work, and this is what I'm bringing. This is what I'm infecting them with, is this cool music and these earworms. And I hope that's something that he remembers when he's making his choices for his work. So, yeah.
Beautiful. That's amazing, Ross. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you again. And thanks for coming on to Navigating Modern Manhood. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy your evening.
Thanks, Ross. Likewise.
Wow. I mean, that's just extraordinary. What an episode, number 9, Scott.
Yeah, he's cool. He's really cool. And as you said, like he's such a great storyteller. I could just sit there and just be quiet, listen to him all night.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really love the depth that he goes into. And there's a real key thing that he said to me, or to both of us actually. It hit me though. Was the self-reflection and pure honesty that we must have, especially when we're looking in that mirror at ourselves. And it's not easy, it's not pleasurable. But when you do it, you actually get the opportunity to see what's going on. You give yourself the opportunity to change those habits, your needs, and your patterns. So, yeah, what a man. And what a story, what a journey he's been on and where he's going.
Yeah. And I'm having a spine tingle right now. I just shared that in this very moment. So whatever you said, that's gold. Thank you, Scott, really. I think we can sign off on episode number 9 now and go, and we're going to bring a sort of summary and thoughts for our 10th episode. So if you are watching, then check out that. That'll be coming soon as well. So thanks, Scott. Let's all go to bed. It's time and start the week now, feeling refreshed and ready to go. I'll see you soon.
Cheers.
This has been another episode of Modern Manhood. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please click to subscribe and make sure you stay connected. We are Navigating Modern Manhood. Join Scott and David next time.